Video 101.
Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dale. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. In tonight's transmission, I'm going to be breaking down the esoterics of El's Holy Angel and how it's connected to the transliteration of the Book of Revelation and astro-theological science, which is interconnected to the embodiment of the reset, right? We finna break it down today because everything that you see taking place right now is based in prophetic divination in real time. So everybody get the rice bowls in the chat, right? Everybody get the rice bowls in the chat because they're basically telling you that we're at the apex of the reset. They're telling you without telling you in so many words, but you got to understand the codexes that's interconnected to the simulation, right? Everything is, based in modern day hieroglyphics, and I'm going to break that down as we get through the transmission in itself. Now, hold on for a second before we get that going. Everybody put those rice bowls in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what you're looking at, taking place in real time, you're looking at the collapse of the factions that's, controlling the great majority of the deep state shadow government. This is what you're talking about, Ashtar Command, when you're talking about the Majestic 12 that is doing the bidding of the Draconian Reptilian, which is called the Jin, that's interconnected to the philosophy and the mythologies that's also interconnected to the Holy Quran. So the reset that's taking place in real time, Donald Trump, he put out a tweet recently that said verbatim, the world's most powerful reset, right? Because now, like I said, we're at the apex of the spiritual metamorphosis that's going to be taking place because whatever happens in the cosmos has to take place on planet Earth in real time, right? Which manipulates economics, which manipulates religion, which manipulates everything that's connected to the geopolitical systems. So this is why I tell you in this document is that it says that as Trump is about to lock 157 million Americans out of their own bank accounts. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed an executive order forcing every United States bank to collect proof of citizenship is in process. And he just dubbed down if Treasury and the banking regulator says it's his job, it's their job. This sounds irrelevant, but this is what it basically means. Per Congressional Research Service, only 48% of Americans hold a United States passport. That leaves over 170 million Americans without one. And it says that real ID don't count, driver's license don't count, and social security cards don't count. So what this basically saying in so many words is that you're not going to be able to get access to your finances if you don't have a passport or if you don't have a birth certificate. So you can't use your driver's license or real IDs. That's what it's basically saying in real time because we're at the apex of the reset, right? So this is why the former Rothschild's director named the head of the Vatican Bank, which controls the Caritas International Networking System, right? So currently the president, Campano, and is managing director of the Edmund D. Rothschild Group will be the new chairman of the supervisory of the board of the Vatican Bank IRO. So it tells you right here, 10,000 vets have foreclosed on their homes, 1 year after Trump canceled Biden's VA loan program. So, like I said, the reset in itself is based on the financial infrastructure, because the financial infrastructure was controlled by the infrastructure, which is basically interconnected to the corporation. The United States is a corporation. Uniform Commercial Code Title 28, Section 3002, right? And the corporation has to fall, right? So it tells you right here, Trump says whole country is getting blown up. This came in today. Donald Trump says that whole country is getting blown up if Iran doesn't sign the deal. Because right now you're having a manipulation process with the ceasefire deals that's going on. So this is why people got to understand that Donald Trump, he's not making the great majority of these decisions by himself. He is being backed by, the black nobility. He is being backed by the Albion Europeans who controls Israel. So Donald Trump, he says right here, whether people like Israel or not, they have proven to be a great ally of the United States of America. They are courageous, bold, loyal, smart, and unlike others, have shown their true colors in a moment of conflict, stress. Israel fights hard and knows how to win. Written by Donald Trump on his Twitter account, right? He's telling you who he is. Because one thing you got to understand about the trilateral connection of the dualistic trine, which creates the Jesuit symbol of the Star of David, right? Which is a Jesuit symbol. But the inception of that, I talk about that in my last transition, talking about Michael Jackson. But this dualistic trine is a representation of a coalition of secret societies and deep state organization programs that's interconnected to the corporation. So you got the Council of Foreign Relations, then you got the United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, the Club of Rome, the Royal Institute of the International Affairs, and the Trilateral Connection, in the Trilateral Commission. So all this is based on eugenics. All this is based on artificial intelligence, biometric technology, and it's also based in technocracy. That's what the round table is all about. That's why Trump, he has to give veneration to Israel, because why? He's the magician. Donald Trump is a white hat and he's a black hat. He's playing both sides, right? That's why he has to give veneration to Israel while at the same time acting like he's a messianic figure. And like I said, you can just tell by the symbolism of the garments, because when you look at the magician tarot card, he's wearing the same, outfit. They're telling you something without telling you. They're telling you that he is basically the magician that's going to hit the motherfucking reset button for, the simulation to collapse. So that's why when you get into ancient gematria Chaldean, it tells you right here that, the magician is equated to 33 degrees, which is a Freemasonic number. So Donald Trump is a Freemasonic magician that is being controlled by the round table, that is the Ashkenazi Jew, the Zionists. That's why he has to show credence to that faction and that demographic of people. That's who's basically being controlled by. So I'm gonna show you a video real quick for a second. Let me get this going. All right. So everybody put the rice bowls in the chat. Everybody put the rice bowls in the chat, ladies and gentlemen.
The president, seemingly not looking to diffuse any possible offence to Catholics across the world, posted this AI-generated picture on True Social of him striking what we'll call a messianic.
Because one thing you got to understand about Donald Trump is basically showing you that he's the embodiment and the personification of the Antichrist archetype, right? Because you got to understand something. He's also a Gemini, so he plays both sides naturally, right? So he's giving off this energy that he's a messianic figure, because I remember during the press conference one time, he was saying that he was the chosen one. Remember that? There was a press conference where he said he was the chosen one. He is being chosen by Israel to create this reset that's going to be taking place on the planet, to have this biometric technology to control humans from a neurological standpoint that interfaces with our chakra system, right? So this is what this is all about. Donald Trump, he is basically being a chaos agent to later on be the archetype of a messianic figure. And this is why him and the Pope is having a conflict of interest right now. Pope Leo and Donald Trump is pretty much beefing right now. But you know, everything in within the infrastructure of that beef, we all know that's all bullshit, right? Everything is a circus act. Everything that they do is basically fabricated. So I'm gonna keep playing this video.
Messianic pose. Well, he has since deleted that post, but he doubled down on his criticism of the pontiff in the last hour.
Pope Leo said things that are wrong. We believe strongly in law and order, and he seemed to have a problem with that, so there's nothing to apologize for. He's wrong. The other thing is he didn't like what we're doing with respect to Iran.
But we have not heard from the White House yet. We specifically asked if this was deleted and asked for more details about the context of what the president meant when he posted it, because there was no words, no caption to go along with it. We want to know who originally posted it and why it was taken down. Now, you may remember that the last time President Trump posted something that really started a huge controversy was a video depicting the Obamas in a very negative way. And the president ultimately said that he wasn't the one who posted it. He said that it was a staffer who did it. I remember asking the president if that staffer was fired, and he said no. But we don't know the situation in this case. What we do know is that picture is no longer on his Truth Social account.
On board a plane to Algeria today, Pope Leo, the first American pope, responding to comments.
See, this is one thing you got to understand about Pope Leo. One thing he's basically trying to do, he's basically trying to interconnect the Roman Catholic Church with the Islamic State. That's why he went to Algeria and he signed a gold book in Algeria. He had a meeting with their, their highest priests and their imams and things of that nature. So what he's basically doing is he's opening the doors to where the Vatican Church have Islamic soldiers. So this is basically the precursor to a one world government that is also interconnected to a one world currency, a digitized currency.
Comments from President Trump, who called him weak.
I have no fear of neither the Trump administration nor speaking out loudly about the message of the gospel.
The Pope, for him, there's a personal dimension to this visit as well. Of course, the Vatican is saying that this is very much an idea to strengthen and promote interfaith values. So Algeria is a Muslim country. Islam is the state religion.
Well, now it is time for the debrief. King Charles is meant...
Because one thing you got to understand about the Vatican Church, the Pope is the what? He is the visor of all religions. So that's why when you get into Freemasonry, it doesn't matter whatever, monotheistic belief system that you subscribe to, because it's all based on the veneration of Metatron, who was Kronos, who was Yaldabaoth, who was Renfren, the same entity, Enlil, right? It's the same veneration of the same God, so that's why it doesn't matter whatever religion that you basically practice, because it all has to go through the process of the Vatican Church. All religions is being controlled by the Vatican Church. It doesn't matter if it's Islam. It doesn't matter if it's Judaism. It's all being controlled by the Vatican, right? The Pope is basically the spiritual authority on the planet until Jesus' return, right? So that's why, that's why I said the Pope is the visor of this realm in real time, right? But it's a synthetic energy because the inception of his bloodline is basically an extraction of the original, right? So that means that they have to invert everything on the planet. They have to invert spiritual concepts, right? To basically give off this energy of a patriarchal one government that is based on totalitarian feudalism.
meant to be the defender of the faith, one faith. Yet the question must be asked, which faith is that to him? Buckingham Palace has announced the King won't be delivering an Easter message this year, despite having done so last year on Maundy Thursday, in which he couldn't resist mentioning Islam, by the way. I'll show you that in a moment. Now, the Easter message is not one the palace releases every year, unlike the annual Christmas speech. Sure.
Now, this is truly a historic visit, the first time a pope has been to Algeria. But going into day one of the visit, there was a lot of focus on Donald Trump's targeted attacks on the pope and his calls for peace in the US-Israel war in Iran. How much was that feud talked about there in Algeria?
The more that you hear peace talks, the more something is about to happen. The more that you hear them say peace on national television, the more that basically lets you know that something is about to happen. Because why would you basically telegraph a draft in December, right? So what's going to be taking place up in between now up until December of 2026? So they're telling you in so many words that something is about to happen. Otherwise, you wouldn't be announcing that you need a draft. So this could be, in alignment with the Red October, but that's a whole different transmission.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
1,000 people. So this is a really big deal. The Pope went to the Great Mosque of Algiers and he took off his shoes and was accompanied by the rector of the mosque.
But if it's not tradition for the defender of the faith to acknowledge a Christian event, then why did King Charles issue a Ramadan message this year? Only a few weeks ago on Shrove Tuesday,
You see, they trying to, interconnect all the religions, right? You never seen this before. Why are they doing it during that timeline? Because like I said, the simulation has a metaphysical codex. They tell you without telling you, and it's connected to the movies. And I'm going to show you somewhere, during the process of this transmission, but I'm going to show you how everything is basically a script that's being played out. But you got to understand the metaphysics of, the modern day hieroglyphics, which is basically the movie titles. You got to understand that.
just before Lent, so during a Christian event, the King said wishing all Muslims in the UK, the Commonwealth and around the world a blessed and peaceful Ramadan. So Eid Mubarak, but nothing for Christians this year, apart from a reference to him attending the Royal Maundy service. Just more pandering to Muslims. The King has even previously taken time out for personalised Ramadan messages.
Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. Ladies and gentlemen,
Bro, when have you ever seen this? This is how you know something is about to happen. You never heard them say anything about, Islam and things of that nature. Why now? Why now? Because they know that we're at the apex of the abomination of desolation that's going to be taking place on American soil that's going to kick off World War III. This is why they're giving off these concepts of one world religion, one world currency, a one world geopolitical system that is controlled by technocrats, right? That is their ideology of a new world, a synthetic golden age.
as Muslims across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth begin preparations to celebrate Eid after fasting for the holy month of Ramadan, I just wanted to convey my heartfelt best wishes to all who celebrate this festival.
And he even used last month's state banquet for another acknowledgement.
So as I close, Mr. President, in anticipation of Eid al-Fitr.
Now, hey, this is why I'm saying they look like us, but they not us. Now, there's a video I'm going to be showing you guys. There's this guy who's an imam. He's been talking about the revealance of draconian reptilians and how the jinn are actually the embodiment of literal lizards, right? Now, remember, I was telling you that the Ashkenazi Jew, the Albion European, is controlled by the black nobility. The black nobility are the ones who you don't see. Now, who are these individuals right here in the background, right? Because one thing you got to understand about the black nobility, they are high-ranking draconian reptilian shapeshifters, right? Who come from the negative faction of the 200 fallen angels, who was also known as the Nephala, or the fallen angel. So that's why I'm saying, the further you get all the way back to the inception of these secret societies and where it comes from, it's gonna get black. And these black entities, they look like us, but they not us, just like Rod Hayes said, right? This is basically, these individuals could be the hierarchals of, the simulation, who controls the, the great majority of, of the westernized factions, like, the Prince of Europe and stuff like that, Prince Charles. These are basically the handlers right here sitting down, right? Now, remember what Norman Burgum said. When he said that he's seen extraterrestrial entities on planet Saturn, he said that they were black, right? So that's why I was saying, people, delineation is key. Delineation is key. Just because they dark like you don't mean that they're on the same frequency, right? Because like I said, the inception of the Canaanite, the first Canaanites were black, right? Those ones, the ones that basically made it with the daughters of men. Because remember in the book of Genesis, it says that the Nephilim, they fell and made it with the daughters of men. The daughters of men, the first ones were black. The first Canaanites was. Then that's when you had the splicing of the sixth ether gene, right? So that's why I was saying, these individuals right here, they're just telling you without telling you that the black nobility is controlling the great majority of the westernized infrastructure, right? They controls the royal family. They controls the Pope. Remember in the book, in the movie, They Clone Tyrone. At the end of the movie, it showed you a black man that was controlling the whole operation. Same thing takes place in geopolitical governments and things of that nature. All the Europeans that you see controlling everything in Israel, the royal family, they're not in control. They're being controlled by these black hats, these archonic forces, black nobility. So they have to reveal themselves, right? But I'm going to keep going.
In Nigeria and across the world, I can only wish you and the millions of Muslims in our countries, Eid Mubarak.
Not even the state banquet was safe from virtue signalling. Just this week, he met with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara at Buckingham Palace. This president was a militant Islamist and former al-Qaeda member. But he was welcomed with open arms at a time when Syria's churches are scaling back Easter celebrations after a Christian town was attacked. What on earth is a former member of a terrorist group doing, getting an invite to meet with the king, let alone at Buckingham Palace? Who does this king represent? And as I said earlier, he did give an Easter message last year, but somehow managed to refer to Islam. He said on Maundy Thursday, Jesus knelt and washed the feet of many of those who would abandon him. The love he showed when he walked the earth reflected the Jewish ethic of caring for the stranger and those in need, a deep human instinct echoed in Islam and other religious traditions. On a Christian holiday, the king still felt the need to warp in a more inclusive interfaith message.
The president, the Algerian president, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, thanked the Pope for being here. He also said that he was a champion of social justice and peace, and he said that he was impressed and he saw that it was courageous and principled of the Pope to have his stance when it comes to Gaza. In his turn, the Pope praised the nobility of the spirit of the Algerian people, saying that...
See, they tell you without telling you. I keep telling y'all, I'm going to play it back. Why did you have to say nobility? You could have used any other terminology. They're telling you without telling you. He was meeting there. They are meeting with the nobility. The royal family, the Pope, that's what they're meeting with. They're meeting with the black nobility. They got to tell you without telling you. I'm going to play it back. I'm going to let her see it again. Say it again.
To have his stance when it comes to Gaza. In his turn, the Pope praised the nobility of the spirit of the Algerian people, saying that nobility of spirit had helped.
They telling you right there, man. They telling you in real time. You can't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. And then when you go back, I'm gonna show you who she's talking about.
The invite to meet with
They got to tell you. They telling you in the mainstream media. This is why Donald Trump, he wants to release the files for the UFO.
Charles issue a Ramadan message this year. Only a few weeks ago.
Ramadan. Only wish you.
Like I said, they got to tell you in real time. A lot of these black nobility entities are nothing but draconian reptilian shapeshifters, right? Who have a non-corporeal and a corporeal form. That's what she's talking about. They got to tell you in real time. They're talking about the black nobility, ladies and gentlemen. Put the rice bowls in the chat because, like I said, Illuminati, we on to you. We on to you.
Overcome difficulties in the past. And he also said, the Pope said, Algerian leaders should not be scared, should not have fear when it comes to greater participation of the public in political life. So these are really big moments here in Algeria. So yes, Trump's comments and the Pope's reactions and Trump's comments again is part of the conversation, but I wouldn't say it was the focus of this visit. The focus is the first time ever that a Pope visits Algeria.
The pontiff focused on forgiveness.
The true struggle for liberation will be definitely won only when peace in our hearts has finally been achieved. I know how difficult it is to forgive. However, as conflicts continue to multiply throughout the world, we cannot add resentment upon resentment, generation after generation in this place.
Following his 2-day visit of Algeria, Pope Leo will visit 3 other African nations, Cameroon, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea, all part of his 11-day tour of Africa. And this first stop is particularly significant for the Pope, as Algeria was the home of St. Augustine, the founder of the order of service and communal living that Pope Leo adheres to. In his first speech as the pontiff, he referred to himself as a son of Augustine.
He has no fear of the Trump administration and no intention of debating with Donald Trump.
It's interesting, the word fear, because having spoken to some people around me today, they have been saying that they think that it's actually Donald Trump who fears the Pope. He fears the communication and the messages that the Pope, the ability of the Pope to reach out to the American right. And so that's why we've had this outburst from Donald Trump. And some people saying to me today that actually they expected this, they're not too surprised. Others, though, simply saying that today is not about Donald Trump. Today is about the first time a Pope is visiting Algeria. He will be at the memorial of the martyrs very soon, and people here are just interested and curious to see what he has to say. And of course, the visit he'll be making tomorrow in Annaba, which has that personal dimension for him. That is where St. Augustine lived. That's where he died 15 centuries ago. So this is a visit for the Pope, which of course kick-starting his visit of 4 African countries. So certainly Trump's comments are in the news, but they're not the hot topic of conversation where I am right now.
And just finally, Claire, tell us about some of the younger people there in Algeria and how they're reacting to his visit. As you say, it's a 4-day...
So they're telling you without telling you. So they're telling you about the black nobility. They're telling you about the unification of a one world religion. Now I'm going to show you how the planet is in a state of judgment. Because this was there was tens of thousands of bees that was swarming Israel, right? I'm gonna play the video for you, because one thing you gotta understand about bees represent resurrection. They represent, spiritual metamorphosis. So that's how you know that, the energy of karmic retribution is on the planet right now. That's why I said the resurrection of everything that's taking place on the planet is the resurrection of the matriarch. That's what the bees symbolize.
תיזהרי, דבורים.
Because one thing you got to understand about the ecology of the planet is also interconnected to ontological artifacts, which is also interconnected to everything that takes place in our life. So with that being said, nature has to mimic the timeline that's basically being taking place, that's controlled by people, places, and possessions. So that means that nature over the course of time has to combat the energies of the physical world to show you that we're at the apex of a spiritual transition. That's what you see taking place right now. Nature has to take back the planet. Everything that was constructed by the physical world represents the energy of the moon. So that means that the resurrection of the sun is basically creating the energy of moonfall, because moonfall is the collapse of the demiurge, which is the third dimension merged in with the lower fourth dimension. So that's why the systems of control is basically starting to go through a transitional phase. So that's why I keep telling you, if you want to understand what's going on the planet, pay attention to nature. So everything that's, everything in nature is a matriarch. The inception of creation is a matriarch. The inception of true spirituality is a matriarch. Ancient Kemetic spirituality is embodied by a matriarch. So that's how you know that when you see nature starting, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even say crash out. When you see nature being in alignment with the consciousness of tapped in humans, that's how you know something is about to happen. So you got that going on, and then we're going to get back to the presentation. So a lot of this stuff, that's taking place, this is not just also, prophetic, but everything that you see taking place is metaphysical, right? And metaphysics is nothing but spirituality meeting science. Okay. Put the rice bowls in the chat. Let's go. We back. So, as I was saying, Donald Trump, he's a white hat and he's a black hat, and he's being controlled by Israel, right? Which makes him the magician, a chaos agent. He's a Freemasonic chaos agent, Agent 47, that's interconnected to the 47 prime of Euclid, right? So he's basically going against the matriarch. So this is why, when you go to this Illuminati card game, it tells you right here, he says in the New York Post, enough is enough. Then on the right here, you got the Illuminati card game. They're telling you what time it is, right? And it says at any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day. So this is an Illuminati card game that came out in the 90s. So they have to mirror a timeline. And then right here, Iran announces it will not participate in the second round of negotiations with the Americans. And then Iran could spark a global jet fuel crisis ahead summer travel. So like I said, this is the time to keep your ass in the house and galvanize your finances and your resources. Get your shit together, right? Only do, you know what I'm saying? Only if, if it's very, pretty much beneficial, you know what I'm saying, from a resourceful standpoint, go ahead and travel. But this is not the time to, to be trying to go on a vacation. This is not the time to be doing it. You got to read the room. You got to understand everything around you. Because everything that you see in the movies, everything that you see in the commercial, everything is according to a certain algorithm. So they're telling you without telling you. Just like at the end, at the end of this transmission, I'm going to show you how they're telling you that we're in the book of Revelation just by way of symbolism in the movie covers, right? All the movies that's coming out is basically a Revelation timeline. They're telling you without telling you. We've been pushed around for 47 years, but not anymore. There goes that number 47, the 47 problem of Euclid, right? So this is the number 47 is a matriarchal number, because the 47 represents man, woman, and child. They're telling you without telling you, because this represents a certain angle, a certain degree. Because remember, I told you when the star Regulus was in alignment with the Sphinx, the planet transmuted into a tilt of 47-degree angles, right? And that 47-degree angle in itself is what put the planet right back into its energetic balance by way of the energy of Mayat for the matriarch, right? They're telling you without telling you. So this is why Donald Trump, within, the revitalization of nature, he has to cause chaos, right? So we are offering a very fair and reasonable deal. I hope they take it, but if they don't, the United States is going to knock every single power plant and bridge in Iran. No more Mr. Nice Guy. So this is why, the Pope, he's setting up in real time, because when you have the collapse of governments, when you have, the activation of war, this is where the peace comes in, because the peace is connected to a one world religion. So the Vatican sets up a dedicated Muslim prayer room at heart of Pope's 500-year-old library. The first American Pope removed his shoes and stepped into a mosque and told Catholics, stop being afraid of Islam. Because I told you, the Pope is the viscera of all religion. The Pope controls the great majority of monotheistic religion because they say in their spiritual documents that the Pope speaks for God until God's return. That's what they say, but when you know the inception of his bloodline, they not really tapped into nothing. So they gotta pretend. They gotta pretend this timeline that's connected to the biblical scripture. So, like I said, one world religion is interconnected to a one world digital currency system, which is also interconnected to BRICS. So now this is where we get into the UFO stuff. So it tells you right here. But before we get into that, I'm gonna break down this dream that this guy had. He had a dream. Now this dream came out in the dream that he had was around like 2018, 17, some of them in 2004, but this video came out maybe about 6 years ago, right? And the guy in this video, he sent me this video and he said, I think you should watch this video because he said that everything that he feels like that's taking place in his dream is actually about to take place in real time.
To share with you.
So if you can't hear it, turn up your volume and put the captions on. Everybody put the rice bowls in the chat. This video is about 6 or 7 years old. This guy, he sent this video to me and he told me to check it out. I checked it out and he said that he feels like that everything that he put in this video is about to happen in real time.
To share with you some of those prophetic dreams that I was telling you about in my first video, my second video, my third video, I think I said, but doesn't matter. I'm here just to, share what my dreams. I know a lot of people had dreams too, but I'm just going to go ahead and share mine. Like I said, I am not a prophet. I'm not claiming to be a prophet. I'm not predicting anything. I'm just sharing what I saw in the dream. Okay, and in 2 of them, the Lord did speak to me. Okay, so the first dream I had was in 2005. It was in President Bush's last term in office. Because I had this dream before I met my wife as a friend. I met my wife in 2006, and I had that dream before I met her. But anyways, it was around 2005. I had this dream, and this is how the dream was. In the dream, I was in between space and the earth. I was at the very, very top of the earth, right before you reach space. And I saw the globe, and the part of the globe I saw was the United States. And when I was looking at the United States, there was a commotion going on. It looked like in the Washington, D.C., Virginia area, in that area. And it registered in the dream that something major or something bad happened in that dream. Very bad. Okay? And then after that, I noticed there was black helicopters flying from the United States, making its way over towards the Middle East. So then, in the dream, I was zoomed out into space, and I saw the globe shift and turn towards the Middle East. Okay? And I was zoomed back into the earth, not close, but right like at the top of the earth, like I said. And then when I got to the Middle East, I noticed Israel, I noticed Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Russia, that whole Middle Eastern area, and the little part of Asia where Russia is. I noticed, I was looking at that area. Then all of a sudden, I noticed that there was a missile being launched from Iran towards Israel. And then there was another little missile being launched. It looked like it was coming out of Iraq, like southern Iraq, towards near the border of Iran.
For those coming in, this guy, he sent me this video. He told me to check it out on YouTube. The guy who made this video, he made this video like in 2018, and he's telling you about all the dreams that's interconnected to the timeline that's taking place right now. And he said that he came across my videos, and he said that I should watch this video that he sent me that's talking about his dreams. And he said that he feels like that everything that he dreamt about is about to happen in real time right now. Because I told you, after the year of 2025, which is the second of the cycle, that's when you have the unraveling. So the unraveling takes place in between the years of 2026 to 2029. Right before you have the Sustainable Development Goals for the Agenda for 2030.
Also going. So one was in front, and another one was going towards Israel. And when I looked at Israel, I saw a wall of fire from stretching from northern Israel all the way down to the border of to the very southern tip of Israel, where Jordan and Israel borders. That whole area was covered with fire. And when the missiles were hitting, the fire would destroy them. Right? It would destroy them. And then I was looking at it, and then next thing you know, I was zoomed back out into space. So I was above the earth, and I saw the smoke clear. Okay? Now after the smoke cleared, listen, I don't know why I seen this, but after the smoke cleared, I was looking at the continents, Africa, Europe, like northern, it was like Europe and not Russia exactly, but that, anyways, the continents were in the shape of a devil. So that part I was like,
now when he was talking about the contents of a shape of a devil, he is actually talking about the sigil system of the ancient Hebrew Alpha symbol, which is also the sign of the Lamb. And the sign of the Lamb is a prophetic symbol that represents Alpha and Omega, which is the 19, right? So that sigil also is interconnected to the sigil of the Antichrist, or the sigil of anarchy, because anarchy is going to be taking place on American soil as you have the resurrection or the rise of the Antichrist that's interconnected to the synthetic golden age that is controlled by the deep state shadow government. That's what he's basically talking about, because that sigil over America represents judgment. It represents the end of a bifurcation period that was controlled by the corporation. That's what it represents.
like, okay, what am I seeing? And then a voice spoke to me. I was zoomed back all the way out into space where I saw the earth, and a voice spoke to me and said, "Do you see what's going to happen?" And I woke up. And I was like, wait a minute. What did I just see? What did I just see, and what did I just hear in my right ear? That was the first prophetic dream I had. You know why? Because you can look at, I don't know if it had to do with Psalms 83 in the Bible, or if it had to do with Ezekiel chapter 38 and chapter 39, because the Bible does say that God is going to protect Israel with fire when they get attacked by multiple nations. Because like I said, in the dream, there was a missile coming from Iran, and there would look like there was a missile that was coming out of southern Iraq near Iran. So it looked like Israel was being attacked by more than one nation, and God was protecting it. Okay? So you could see Ezekiel chapter 38 and chapter 39, or Psalms 83. I don't know which war was that, but after that smoke cleared, I saw the continents in the shape of a devil. And I don't know if that's symbolizing after that event, the Antichrist is going to reign, or if the Antichrist is already reigning during that time. So I don't know. That's the first dream. And like I said, I heard the voice speak to me and said, everything is, not everything. Do you see what's going to happen? Okay, that was the first dream. That was the last term of President Bush in office. So that was around 2005 I had that dream. Then the second dream I had, listen to this, because it's kind of similar, only it didn't go to the Middle East. Okay, it stayed in the United States. Now, this dream I had was in 2008, during the last debate between Barack Hussein Obama and John McCain. It was in October I had this dream of 2008. Don't remember the exact date in October, but I know they were getting ready to do the final debate. Okay? And in this dream, I saw the United States pass before my eyes from California all the way to Washington, D.C. And the way the map looked, it looked like one of those colorful United States maps. You know, like when you see in school where the pink, the blue, the purple, the yellow, you know, those different color the states were. But my eyes went from California all the way to Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., once I got there, it zoomed in. Now, mind you, this is before Barack Obama was president. It was during the debates with him and John McCain. In the dream, I saw Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, standing outside of the White House, looking up and then ducking for cover. And when I saw in the dream, I saw two huge missiles coming up, and they came down and they hit. And there was an explosion and everything turned white. And when everything turned white, listen to me, in the dream, a voice in my right ear again said, "Everything is getting into place." And I woke up. okay? And I saw those missiles. They were not your regular, ordinary missiles. No, these were big missiles. They looked nuclear in the dream. Now, Barack Obama was outside of the White House when that happened, when those missiles hit. So I don't know if I was being shown something in a moment of time, because he was outside of the White House. He was dressed presidential, so that's why I knew he was already going to win the presidency during the race. I mean, during that time with John McCain. And I went and I shared this with a few of my friends. I said, I already know who won the presidential candidate. It's Barack Obama. Barack Obama is going to be president. And lo and behold, came January, he was president. Now listen to me. I don't know why I kept having dreams about Barack Obama. I never asked God for them. And like I said, I'm not saying anything about anybody. I'm not saying anything about Barack Obama. Nothing. I pray for the peace over all men, that they come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ and be saved. I'm not saying anything. I'm just sharing with you guys the experience that I had. Okay? 2009. Okay? 2009 January. I had another dream with Barack Obama. I don't know why I had this. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Let me make it very clear, okay? Sorry, excuse me, because this dream has to do with something like this. Remember when I told you I saw the map passing before my face from California all the way to Washington, D.C.? Okay, right before I got into Washington, D.C., I saw President Bush's face like in a picture frame all the way to the west of the map. I don't know why I saw that. Then after I saw that, I zoomed into Washington, D.C., and then I saw Barack Obama dressed presidential. Mind you, this is before he became president in 2008. He looked at presidential. He was wearing a black suit, and then he looked up, and those two missiles came. They were huge, and they hit, and there was a big explosion. He was outside of the White House then. Okay? And then that's when after the explosion happened, everything turned white, and a voice said, everything's getting into place. Okay, so the next year, January 1st, I had another dream with Barack Obama, and I don't know why. Look, listen, I'm just sharing with you the dreams that I had. It could be just a dream or just something, but I don't know what happened. It was in January. I had a dream that I was sitting at a big wooden table by myself, and then to the left, on the other side of the table, there was a door, and Barack Obama came through the door. He had a secret agent, his Secret Service with him. He sat down in front of me. I didn't ask any questions. This was just a dream, okay? He sat down in front of me and said, everything I learned was from the Bushes. And then I woke up. So I was like, what is the point of that? What is the point of that dream? You know, I know the dream before. I saw President Bush's face in the frame, zoomed in. I don't know. I'm just sharing with that one. Okay? Then, towards the last term, when he was finished with 2008 and he was running again for presidency, when he was going against Mitt Romney, I saw that he won the presidency again. And I told my wife this. I saw him in my dream, in another dream I had, that he was dressed very presidential. He looked presidential. He was sitting in a room full of women, like he was talking to them. And I told my wife, I said, and this is the time when he was debating Mitt Romney.
And I'm gonna show you the air part where he basically said that he's not human. That's what I'm trying to get to.
I told my wife again, I said, and I remember it was 2014 because me and my wife went to some. I had the two dreams in March, okay? Rested on top of the earth, and I woke up. Then that was in March. In the same year, which was in March, same month, I saw the New Jerusalem. But this was one of the. Listen to this dream. In the dream, which was in 2014 in March, same month, I saw the New Jerusalem come down from the heavens and landed on the earth.
So the New Jerusalem is also the personification of the mothership. Now, this is just a guy who had a regular dream. He said he's not a prophet, he's not a scholar. He just sharing a dream that he had on YouTube, and he sent me this video.
I was in a room. Okay, the room was filled with government officials, military officials that were suited up and they were decked out with their badges and their patches and everything, and regular men of government that were in suits. Okay, it was a big circular oval type room, not in the White House. It was a different kind of room, right? And the carpet was red in that room. And I noticed while the crowd, the government officials and the military officials, there was a podium to my right, but the podium was empty. It was a podium, a wooden podium that had microphones on it, like somebody was coming out to speak. Okay, and the doors where the red carpet led to the doors that were behind the podium, there were two great iron doors. And when I mean great, I mean they were huge. They were big, tall, thick iron doors. And in the dream, I saw the doors open. And there was a man that came walking out. He was very slender looking. And listen to me when I tell you this, okay? Listen to me how it registered to me in the dream. Listen, okay? I saw the man come walking out, okay? Listen to how I'm going to say this. He looked like Barack Obama, but it was not Barack Obama, if I can say that clear. Why? Because his face was different. His demeanor was different. He looked angry. He had a fierce face. And then when he went to the podium.
So he's basically saying in so many words, because one thing you got to understand about people who are stuck in monotheistic belief systems, their perception of spirituality is misconstrued. So they say a demon, or they won't say a draconian reptilian or a gray or some type of entity that's coming from interdimensional space or whatever. They just say something that's like a demon or whatever, because they cannot fathom what's taking place because of the indoctrination that is connected to their belief systems. So that's why his concept of his dreams is saying, hey, this is Jesus, and his face changed. That's the way he can describe it. He can't describe, his dreams from a metaphysical standpoint because he doesn't have that knowledge.
I don't know. I was moved behind him. So if I was standing behind, I was on his left side. And listen to me how he said this. He spoke on the microphone. Okay? He spoke on the microphone to the crowd that was in front of him. Everybody got quiet. And he said just like this to them. I told you, I am not who I am, who you think I am. Twice he said it. I told you, I am not who I am, who you think I am. And then my dream ended. And I woke up.
So I'm going to end it right there. So he's basically saying that the president of that time, they came up to the podium. The entity didn't really have a face. It had like a disgruntled face that he said. And he was basically, in so many words, he's saying it's an entity. And I'm going to show you another video that extrapolates that evidence, talking about draconian reptilians and things of that nature. But first, I'm going to get back to the transmission. Everybody get the likes up. And there's about 50-60% of the people on this channel that's not subscribed to the channel. So hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen, and hit that hype button at the end of this video, man, so we can push these videos in the algorithm so people can understand what the hell is going on, right? So that's why Donald Trump, he says that he's going to reveal UFO files, releasing them, and they just created a domain name for extraterrestrials within his administration. And then, you got this going on, right? This came out last week, a few days ago. An interstellar invader, 3i Atlas, is spraying tons of water into space every second. So one thing you got to understand is that Jupiter in the celestial, esoterics is in alignment with Jesus. So when you're talking about these Holy Ghost particles, these are basically neutrinos. So the water that's spraying is actually talking about the cosmic radiation that's poured down to the planet. Because like I said, the apex of the Aquarian age has to be galvanized by the energy of the sun to pull you right back into the galactic center. And the only way to do that is the cosmic waters that's interconnected to 3i Atlas, because it raises up in consciousness. Because remember, I was telling you guys that the 3-1 Atlas vertebrae is actually interconnected to the 33rd vertebrae. It's an anchor because it's the C1 Atlas vertebrae. So it was actually talking about a certain consciousness that's creating the cosmic radiation that's coming from the cosmic waters. The pitcher of water. So the bearing a pitcher of water, follow him into the house where he entereth. Luke 22:10. That is the beginning of the Aquarian age. So this is why I said science, when you get into astro-theological science, is interconnected to prophetic divination in real time, right? So interstellar invader, 3-eye atlas, spraying tons of water. They're telling you without telling you that we're in an Aquarian age, because that cosmic radiation pulls you right back into the fifth dimensional plane. But this when you have the equatorial coronal hole. So like I said, the neutrinos is coming off from the sun, is manipulating everything in real time. Then we was talking about the bees that's connected to the energy of the matriarch. And then you got scientists have found 5.5 million bees living beneath a New York cemetery, right? Because it represents resurrection. Now, this is where we get into the movies, right? You got to understand something. The CIA has an office in Hollywood. Hollywood has an office in the CIA. They're telling you without telling you that we're in the book of Revelation. So this is going to be the lineup for the movies that's going to be coming out. So this movie, The Silence of the Lambs, I for whatever reason why, they just coming out and putting this movie back on in the theaters on April 26th of 2026. While at the same time, these movies is going to be out. Because in the last transmission, we was talking about Michael, who is Michael, who is Melchizedek, who is the true Lord of the Bible, who slays the dragon, who is also the personification of the beast. This is why they came out with the movie Beast. Then they came out with the movie called Great Awakening. And then you got the Exit 8, which represents the Pleiadian light lock that's interconnected to the energy of the moon. And the lamb in itself is basically those that is galvanized by the shepherd who follow the message of the personification of Christ. That's what the sign of the Lamb is. The sign of the Lamb is basically the 144,000, the Lamb of God. So remember we was talking about in the book of Revelations, we was talking about Michael, who slays the dragon, the beast, right? Everything that these movie titles is nothing but a script. Now remember I was talking about Artemis 2. Artemis 2 was showing you the routing zone from the moon to Earth. Then they came out with a movie called Exit 8, because Exit 8 is basically telling you to exit the Metatronic overlay that's interconnected to the Pleiadian light lock. They're telling you to exit this orbit of dysfunction. So because like I said, the moon and Earth, which creates this perpetual state, is nothing but a representation of an orbit of dysfunction to keep you in a perpetual state of reincarnation. That's what it basically represents, right? Then you got this. You had the Great Awakening map that came out in 2019. Now they got a movie called The Great Awakening in theaters right now. Why you got this movie in theaters? Why you got this movie going to be coming in theaters? Then you got the Beast going to be in theaters because it talks about the Antichrist is the beast of Revelation. They're telling you without telling you in real time. The Lamb. What is the Lamb? The lamb is the whitest, the whitest of the lamb symbolizes innocence and purity. The lambs are also associated with the sacrifice of the Old Testament, which is basically the personification of the Christ, right? So the lamb, I mean, when you get into the metaphysics of it, it's really talking about the cosmic convergence of the 144,000. The 144,000 is basically the personification of Christ, which is a form of consciousness, a certain consciousness that's coming from the Lamb, right? They're telling you without telling you in the algorithm. The simulation has an algorithm. So this is why I said that movie covers and movie titles are basically modern day hieroglyphics. This basically let you know that we're in the script of Revelation in real time. And that's why Dr. Malachi Yorkie came out with the book Leviathan as the Antichrist, Leviathan the beast as the Antichrist, and then the guy in the middle right here looks just like Donald Trump, looks just like him. And then when you go to El's Holy Angel, which is a transliteration of the book of Revelation, it tells you right here in Revelation 17:17, it says, because Eli, El Elyon El, who is Theos. Theos is personification of the Most High, who is also known as Anu, right? And Anu is interconnected to a fifth dimensional consciousness, which is basically the magnetosphere. So it says that Theos, which is actually Thanos, right? Because consciousness is the only thing that can basically reverse the polarity of the dark forces that controlled everything in the three-dimensional world. So Theos made their hearts become a disease, making the nations give themselves on to a evil reptilian, right? And it tells you right here, the evil reptilian that is going to give their kingdom to the beast, right? That's why I was telling you. They're telling you in real time that the beast in itself, in that video, they were showing you Prince, the royal family speaking amongst those black nobility, because a lot of those black nobility entities are evil reptilians. The evil reptilian gave their power to the beast. It gave their kingdom to the beast of nations, which is controlled by Canaanites, right? These are Canaanites. It's a bloodline. It's a monarchy. It's a monarchy system to bring about a technocratic system. Now I'm going to show you this video.
Jinn races, many of them look like.
Now this guy right here, he's supposed to be a venerated imam, like a spiritualist, and he talks about the jinn. The jinn, they speak about those in the Holy Quran. I'm going to play the video.
Like jinn races, many of them look like lizards, literally. And as a result, if their frequency enters into people and occupies that person, they create that barrier all around, and that's their way of masking themselves.
See, like I said, the way they're able to mask themselves is by way of the frequency of emotion, by way of extraction of fear. That's why everything in the three-dimensional world is meant to keep you at a low vibrational state. You're draining your energy to porn. You're draining your energy through the food. You're draining your energy through the music. Everything is an energy extraction, because it basically weakens your magnetic field and your auric field to the point where these non-corporeal draconian reptilian entities can basically penetrate your cipher and control you by way of your nervous system, right? Because that's what demonic possession is. Demonic possession is doing some shit that don't even make sense. Because when you see a lot of people who are under demonic possession, what they doing? They talking in the sky, they running naked in the street. That's a form of neurological manipulation that's basically connected to your nervous system. So that's why I said, in these last days, you got to be energetically balanced to the point where you're not able to be compromised. Anytime you start to think things that don't make sense, do stuff that don't make sense, and say a lot of shit that don't make sense, that is basically a form of demonic possession, which is also interconnected to a form of mental illness. So that's why I said you got to raise up your vibration, because as we get through this Great Awakening period, a lot of people who have a lot of spiritual psychosis, you can easily be manipulated, by these entities that he's basically talking about, right? Because, like I said, they have three different states. They have a humanoid state, they have a physical state, and then they also have a non-corporeal state, where you're talking about shadowy people. I'm gonna play the video. I'm gonna keep playing the video. I'm gonna play it back.
Jinn races, many of them look like lizards, literally. And as a result, if their frequency enters into people and occupies that person, they create that barrier all around, and that's their way of masking themselves, where they create a frequency and they look human under certain sounds.
And one thing you got to understand is that when they pass away and the more they come back, the more human they look, because it's all based on emotional energy. They can manipulate your neurological chemistry to the point where it makes you emotional, to the point where they can make you see what they want to see, what you want to see. Like hypothetically speaking, they can cloak themselves by way of your emotional energy by bending the photon photon-like spectrum, which is cultivated by subatomic particles. They can bend that photon-like spectrum based on your emotional energy that is extracted from your mind. So that's why I said they use the shape-shifting tactic. Is called the melanocortin 1 receptor gene. The melanocortin 1 receptor gene is what gives them the propensity to be able to, cloak themselves with emotional energy. And they can do it by fear. So that's why the religion in itself is being, facilitated by fear. Fear God. Fear this, fear that. Or you're going to hell. You're not going to heaven. Or if you break the 10 commandments, you're not going to heaven. Everything is a fear energy, because when you're in a state of fear, you cannot see. But when you eliminate the fear, you eliminate that veil, right? You eliminate the veil that's being encrypted by your mind. So that's why I said a lot of people, they don't have the ability to think outside the box, because you got to use your imagination. Your imagination is how you manipulate the ethers, right? You can see certain things without seeing them, because your imagination is the apex of true spirituality. So that's what they do. They use the melanocortin 1 receptor gene, and they bend the photon-like spectrum. And that photon-like spectrum in itself is interconnected to subatomic particles. Because, like I said, it's an entrapment of energy, to entrap your emotions, to bend your perspective based on your thoughts. That's how they do it. So it's an intrinsic technology that they use. It's an emotional technology.
Under their excitement and stress, that veil is distorted at times, and people all of a sudden see something they shouldn't be seeing, because that creature is trying to keep a veil of who they are. So it's a manipulation of energy that Allah is giving in Surah Al-Yasin. That we create a barrier in front of them and behind them.
As you remember, I recently directed the Secretary of War. How good is Pete Hegseth doing, by the way? To begin releasing government files relating to UFOs and unexplained aerial phenomena. And I figured this was a good crowd, because I know you people, you're really into that. I don't know if I am. So I'm pleased to report today, I thought I'd save it for this crowd, because you're a little bit out there, a little bit, that this process is well underway, and we found many very interesting documents, I must say. And the first releases will begin very, very soon. So you can go out and see if that phenomena is correct. You'll figure it out. Let me know. Let me know. But we've had a lot of questions. It's something that really captivates the mind. There's no question about it.
So with that being said, they're telling you in real time, because like I said, there's an algorithm at play, and they got to follow a certain script that's interconnected to their belief systems and their doctrines. So with that being said, we're going to get some questions in the chat. Put some questions in the chat. So they telling you without telling you. I showed you in real time on how they're using the titles of the movies, The Beast, Michael, Exit 8. They coming out with the movie Mortal Kombat, and the Mortal Kombat 2 symbols represents Gemini, and Donald Trump is a Gemini, which also represents the pillar of severity and mercy. It represents the pillars of Jack and Boaz. So they're telling you in real time what time it is on the planet. They're telling you that, we're at the apex of the Great Awakening period by way of biblical and spiritual context. So put the questions in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Put the questions in the chat. And everybody get the likes up. And like I said, there's about 50 to 60% of the people who watches this channel, they're not subscribed to the channel, so hit that subscribe button. So if you got some questions in the chat, put them up in here. He says, will there be an attack on the United States soil to cause a draft? Yeah, because it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, they're telegraphing something, that's going to be taking place. And this can be connected to the October surprise. They've been talking about QAnon. They've been talking about the October surprise for many different years, right? So for them to have a draft, I think it's like December 16th. So something is going to transpire in between, now all the way up until December. Because otherwise you wouldn't, have a draft. It would defeat the whole purpose. But salute to you, brother. Salute to you. Okay, we got another question. No, we got a salute to Justice Santos. Okay. Put the questions in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. He says, salute to Nia Price. Please go over the 7 seals, 7 chakras, and what one can do to parallel that to the book of Revelations. All right. One thing you got to understand about the 7 in itself is interconnected to the circle of life, right? You got mankind, you got plant, animal, protoplasm, mankind, cherubim, and seraphim, right? Which creates the circle of life within the factions of the simulation. So when you also talking about human consciousness manipulating physical matter, that means that the Christ consciousness is coming from a form of Christos, which is Krishna and Shiva create 7. Krishna is the outer manifestation of Shiva, and Shiva means 7. So that means that the Christ consciousness has the ability to unlock the 7 chakras, which unlocks the 7 seals, which is interconnected to the 7 thunders. The 7 thunders, the 7 thunders cannot be activated until you have the activation of the 7 seals, which are basically the tectonic plates on planet Earth. So that's basically like the chakra system of planet Earth. So that means that your chakra system has to interface with everything in nature in order to manipulate the matrix. That's what you call the blueprint for the Great Reset, which is also a Phoenix event, which also creates the Great Solar Flash. That's what that is. Seven is also, represents, God. That's the personification of it. Okay. All right. So, will you be giving a metaphysical breakdown of the 5 movies you mentioned earlier in the show? Probably not. I'm really just touching on like highly significant movies that basically is foretelling a certain timeline that's taking place in government. So I try to just, try to keep it simple. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go into every movie because every movie is not meant to be dissected or whatever. So I just try, I just take what I can from each movie. We got another salute to Justice Santos. Okay. Do you believe in the government hybridization program? Yes, I do. They do a lot of genetical hybrid, experiments. In fact, where they created Lyme disease on Lyme Island, right up the road, you also have Montauk, New York. So a lot of genetic hybridization experiments that came from the Majestic 12. Because one thing about the Majestic 12 and Ashtar Command, they gave the technology to the Nazi regime and the Third Reich on how to clone entities or just clone, Nazi soldiers, right? Because one thing you got to understand about the cloning process, cloning in itself is interconnected to a certain genognostic philosophy. And what I mean by genognostic philosophy, it has to follow a certain process that's in alignment with a certain ideology that's connected to the Nazi regime. So the great majority of the Nazi soldiers that Hitler had after World War I, a lot of them were actually clones. And they use a lot of that, the cloning, as far as like the organs, they took the great majority of the organs from the fourth seed of the Girgashite that's interconnected to the Canaanite. Yeah, the Canaanite, the fourth seed of the Canaanite is the Girgashite, and that's where it's in alignment with the energy of the pig. So the great majority of hybridized entities and clones or whatever, a lot of them have pig organs. A lot of them have pig organs. So yes, government hybridization programs is very real. They used to do a lot of cloning during that time period when Hitler had his little reign going on. Okay, let me see. But also, when you a clone, you're also a NPC. And the NPC, like I said, is a computer generated spirit that's controlled by emotion. They don't have a soul; they have a spirit. Okay, here we go. We got some salute to Code Nation. What it mean in dream, Jen? Talk to me and warn me. One thing you gotta understand about demons. Your demons, like I said, sometimes you got to use them as catalysts. That's why I keep telling people all the time, you got to keep your dark side, because your dark side is going to lead you to the light, right? But you know, you got to do a lot of technology in order to do that, because a lot of people are not neurologically or they're not emotionally balanced enough in order to connect with those demons to reverse the polarity of the subjugation that is being controlled by the demon. So that's why I was saying, like, you got to be tapped in, you know, and have an energetic balance in order to uh, reverse the energy of a demon that's controlling you. So a lot of these demons in itself, like I said, love in itself can be a demon. It can be a jinn. You can love something so much to the point where it destroys you. And that's another thing. Never speak to demons in your dream. Never talk to them. Basically, anything that opens its mouth in a dream is basically a demonic entity, a demonic force. Because everything in a dream world is supposed to be telepathic. Everything in a dream world is telepathic. Everything in a dream world is telepathic. You're not supposed to speak to entities in your dream, and you're not supposed to receive food from entities in your dream. You're not supposed to eat or drink or talk to nothing, because that's basically interconnected to a physical construct that represents the three-dimensional world. And the three-dimensional world cannot interface with the spiritual realm at the same time. So that's how you know it's a fallacy. That's how you know it's a fallacy, if you're being tricked in your dream. Because the physical world is the physical world. Why is the physical world entering the spiritual world? You know what I'm saying? That's how you know it's a fallacy. Okay. I don't think you can eliminate archons, but the only way you can beat an archon is being your true authentic self. Because when you're basically your true authentic self, that creates your aura. See, archonic forces and demons and jinns and non-corporeal intelligence, they love people who vibrate on a low frequency. So this is why you got a lot of people who live vicariously through rappers and celebrities and entertainers. A lot of those people are basically controlled. Those are NPCs because they don't have their own sense of self-direction. So an archon who controls a celebrity can get the celebrity to control people who are the NPCs. That's why I said they don't want you to think for yourself. That's how you eliminate an archon. You eliminate an archon by thinking for yourself, right? Thinking for yourself, having independent thought is what makes you the Christ. Because archons, what they do, they mimic energy. Archons mimic energy. They don't have the ability to create, so they have to use people, places, and things in order to create their world, the illusionary world. Okay. Get into some more questions. Have you heard about people going underground in RVs? And yes, I've been seeing a lot of videos about that. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about that. So that's why I said this is the time you're supposed to be tribing up. because there's going to be a lot of shit taking place in real time. Okay. Salute to Gaia's N10. Would this be a safe time to start a business and work for yourself? It should be a good time to work for yourself. Yes, most definitely. Yes. Because, the fall of the corporation is where you have the manipulation of the infrastructure that was controlled by the Vatican. So this is why the Rothschilds in itself, they're trying to team up and create this one world currency system. So when you have the fall of the corporation in maritime law, that collapses the great majority of Fortune 500 companies. It collapses the great majority of a lot of these westernized businesses, that was built on, slavery. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these systems of control was built upon, a workforce. They created a workforce system to the point where like it kept you, stuck in time. So, like I said, especially during this time period, you want to do for self, because when you do for self, you're not going to be manipulated by, FEMA. You're not going to need their systems of control because you got your own motherfucking resources. That's what it's all about. Doing for self during this time period, because that's what makes you a god. Doing for yourself, because that's what it's all about. You got to save yourself. You can't look to the system as the system is basically collapsing to revitalize your situation. It don't work like that. So this would be a good time to start a business or do anything, that's basically self-affirming. Let's see. So definitely get those businesses and everything started. Let me see. As I said before, it says, how should we prepare for the financial system crashing? Get you some gold and get you some silver, because you can use gold and silver as a placeholder in the next timeline. Okay. Salute to Jared Hooks. What are your thoughts on many movies that's been showing human sacrifice lately? What are they trying to tell us? Because human sacrifice, human sacrifice, that's how, the deep state, they built their systems of control based on sacrifice. Canaanite culture, westernized culture, is in Babylonian culture, it's all based on sacrifice. Babylonian money magic, Babylonian sex magic, and Babylonian blood magic, because it represents an energy exchange, right? Because that means that you have to give up something to basically reap the benefits of whatever you trying to manifest in this realm. And that's the energy exchange in itself. That's when you get the contract, a brief, a covenant with these archonic forces. I want to get this record deal, so you got to make a energy exchange, a blood contract with these entities, because that's what it happens when you sign over your nature. When you sign over your nature with a signature, that's a blood contract. That's a sacrifice, right? That's why if you're a rapper, or if you're an actor or whatever, when you get that contract, cross out artist and cross out actor and put creator, because that basically eliminates you from being under the jurisdiction, under the act of parliament, to where you have full autonomy over everything that you basically create in your movies and everything that you create in your music, right? And also within that, put your name in the sole proprietorship. Then you get everything else on the back end after that, right? So that's what, sacrifice in itself is not just based on, trading in your divinity for time. You signing those documents to get that new job, you got to sign Social Security and tax withholding. You signing over your nature. Now you got to go to the workforce. Now you trading in your divinity and your time for money, right? That's a form of sacrifice. You're sacrificing your time for artificial paper from a synthetic system that was created by synthetic people, right? That's why nothing in the three-dimensional world doesn't have any type of sustainability. It has to phase out. That's why it operates on the phases of the moon, because the moon is artificial, right? So that means that everything artificial has to fall. So when everything that's basically artificial has to fall, that's connected to the corporations, that's where human trafficking falls, organ harvesting falls, right? Drug trafficking falls, because that was created by the deep state shadow government. The deep state shadow government created the corporations through human sacrifice, right? So that's why I said it operates on the phases of the moon, and we're no longer in the Piscean age of darkness, so it has to fall. Okay, let me see. Salute to Eric. Be there with all the world changes. Should people have the pensions or retirement accounts still depending on the systems? See, like I said, I'm now I'm not going to tell you what you do with your money or whatever, or anybody, but it is imperative right now to also. They even showed you in the movie Leave the World Behind. Um, liquid cash also has, what I'm saying, some vitality, and it still has a lot of power because you can use it in a barter system. But I'm not saying get all your money out of your retirement or whatever, but I mean, you got to be really meticulous with stuff like that, because I don't want to be that person, Bdale told everybody to get their money out of the savings. I don't want to be that guy. So, like I said, it's up to you. If you feel like that's a good move to do, I mean, so be it. Make that move for you and your family. And I hope it works out, if anybody decides to take that route. But, because, I mean, you are seeing a lot of changes in in the economic system. So, we are in that time period. So, like I said, Donald Trump, he did tweet out, this is the world's most powerful reset. So when you reset everything, you're not just resetting world politics, you're resetting world governments, you're resetting world economics, world finances. Everything has to go through a transitional period. Salute to Danny. So is all the non-copper NPCs. I'm non-copper, but I feel awake and have many telepathic conversations. How does the new financial system play into this XRP? Now, I'm not saying so an NPC is a non-playable character. So a non-playable character is not only subjected to skin color, right? Because it's like, to be an NPC, like I said, that means that your neurological chemistry is interconnected to a philosophy of indoctrination. That means that your neural network in itself can be manipulated by way of, thought and ideologies that's coming from, westernized concepts. So that's what I was saying, an NPC in itself is just a person who doesn't have the ability to think for themselves, right? It has nothing to do with skin color. It has nothing to do with skin color. It's a mentality, right? So that's why I said a lot of our loved ones, whether they black, white, Chinese, Mexican, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of people in my family who are NPCs, right? They cannot fathom anything that's taking place on the planet right now. All they know is rap, pussy, and sports, entertainment, music, that's all they know, and that's their life, which is fine. Everybody got their own, direction. So NPCs is not, skin color based. It's a mindset. And also, when it comes to the financial system being at play, like I said, you just had the Rothschild. He's basically being the head of the Vatican Bank, which is connected to the Caritas International Networking System that is controlled by the deep state shadow government. So what's going to happen is that maritime law is gaining jurisdiction through the Uniform Commercial Code. So that means that they're turning this the smart cities into a digital prison. They want to keep you entrapped inside a digital prison. That's what's happening, right? So maybe XRP, like I said, I don't want to give people, choices like that, and I told you to put your money in something, and I don't do stuff like that. So, okay. Get into some more questions. The Galactic Federation is real. I think Val Thor, who was also doing works with President Nixon, he also spoke of a Galactic Federation, and it's a real thing. They even showed you in the American Horror Story. They show you in an episode where Val Thor he speaks of this Galactic Federation, and like I said, it's a real thing. And Dr. Malakazi York he speaks of the Galactic Federation in some of his publications, so you should check out that. But the Galactic Federation is really just a council of factions and different entities from different star systems, and they make choices for what's going to be taking place in the Earth zone or whatever dimensional plane that they're operating in. Okay. Yes, just like in the show Paradise, a digital prison. Yep. Because if you get into the inception of the movie, they had the reset, and then that's when they create the artificial world in the movie inside of a mountain. And salute to I ain't gonna say your name on here, but what's your opinion? Oh, you already did that one. Okay. Salute to everybody in the chat. And then at the end of this video, once we get into the transmission, man, make sure y'all hype the video up to push these videos in the algorithm, to show people the algorithm of what's going to be taking place in real time when you watch these videos. I keep showing you guys that the movies is connected to a algorithm that is connected to the script of the Bible. Okay. Okay. I'm going to get one more question in and I'm going to cut out. Will there be another lockdown in 2026? If so, what causes it? Now, I wouldn't say in the year of 2026. I say right before the year of 2028, because in 2028, that's when they want to start building the smart cities, specifically in California. Now, I would say in 2027, and the reason I say that is because that's also during the time period where you're going to have the fall of the church. Because according to the prophecy of popes, they say that the year 2027 is the end of the world, which is basically the end of the regime that was controlled by the faction of the deep state shadow government that is controlled by the Vatican Church and world political leaders in that hierarchical system. So I would say another pestilence could be happening around 2027, because that's also because 2027 is also an 11 year, because 2 plus 2 plus 7 equals 11. So that creates the great separation. So that's going to create a separation from those who are actually tapped in to the energetic frequency of the soul, to where you got to separate from NPCs and people who is also in a state of desolation. And that's why I was saying, like, when you're talking about the smart dust particles that interfaces with the nanotechnology, a lot of that manipulation in itself can basically turn off the neurotransmission of a certain individual to the point where it puts them in a state of zombification. So what I'm saying is that, the technology can make a person a zombie because it has the ability to manipulate the two frontal lobes of the brain. And that's where you get your motor cortex skills from. Your brain could be manipulated by these energies. So the nanotechnology in your body that came from the draconian juice when in 2020 when we had the lockdown, a lot of those nanotechnologies is going through an extraction process because that technology is not able to interface with the sun. And that sun is causing the unraveling process with the nanotechnology that causes a pestilence on the planet. So that's why I was saying the technology in itself is what's going to cause the next lockdown. the technology that's already inside your body, because it creates a biofilm. And a biofilm is where the parasites is able to replicate themselves through the nanotechnology, right? That's why Bill Gates, he wants control over, the great majority of all vegetation and produce, because genetically modified foods in itself have a lot of nanotechnology. So because of the energy of the sun, these neutrinos is coming in. Technology cannot harmonize and interface with solar transmission. Solar transmission basically disrupts technology. Yeah, solar transmission disrupts solar transmission disrupts technology. So that's why I was saying it could be another. As the sun gets hotter, it's going to create a form of pestilence. It's going to create zombies, right? You already got a lot of people out here going crazy. That's because their neurological chemistry is being manipulated by the frequencies of the sun. It's only going to get hotter on the planet, right? And the only way you can be protected is when you have neuromelanin activation. Just because you got melanin on your skin don't mean you safe. Because some of y'all got melanin and you still think like a Ashkenazi European, right? You still got their mindset. You got a non-ether genetical structure, but you got the mindset of a six-ether being, right? They cannot coexist. Yes, they got faux melanin and eumelanin. We got neuromelanin. The neuromelanin is the brain and central nervous system melanin that makes up the fascia system that's interconnected to your nervous system, which makes up your auric field, right? So that's why I said, as the sun gets hotter, like I said, technology cannot interface with solar transmission. That solar frequency, that gamma radiation that's coming down, is going to interface with a lot of these NPCs who lined up and got the draconian juice back in 2019, 20, and 2021, and went and got the damn booster. What's going to happen is your neurological chemistry is going to be manipulated, just like in the movie Cell, right? When they had the frequencies from the cosmos was manipulating everybody who had a neurological manipulation process, right? So that's what makes you a zombie, your neurological chemistry being manipulated. So, okay, I think I got another super chat. Let me see. Salute to Aquila Sunray. What do you think about all the melanated people moving to Thailand because the costs are cheaper? I mean, whatever floats your boat or whatever, actually, my sister, she just came back from Thailand, 2 days ago, actually. I understand it as far as like you using it, to galvanize, resources and save money. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, America is going through a transitional phase. America's in the state of judgment, but that doesn't mean that you leave your homeland. You know what I'm saying? Because, the original indigenous people were the autochthonous people. The autochthonous people that's connected to the mitochondrial mitochondrial network of America. We're connected to this landmass. This is the land of Tahuti. America is the land of Tahuti, right? That's why everything in America has to be venerated by the bird, which is the feather. All indigenous clothing, we always had a veneration for the feather. So this is your homeland. Because I think I showed y'all this book not too long ago. Think I must got it put up. But America is the real true Holy Land. This is where you had Tartaria. This is where you had Atlantis, the true Egypt, all that. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the basis of this video is where I was basically demonstrating on how when you get into astro-theological science and you combine it with metaphysical codexes that's interconnected to the movie industry, and you see it from a prophetic divination standpoint, they're telling you in real time that we're in Revelation. But we all know that everything that's interconnected to the Bible is actually talking about things that are basically taking place within the infrastructure of your body. It's not actually talking about physical entities. Yes, there are interdimensional entities, and you got draconian reptilians and jinns. Yes, they exist, but it's one of those things where they're following the timeline of the Bible. That's what's happening in real time. They're following the timeline of westernized religion. So they're telling you without telling you that we're in Revelation. So that's why I said, during this time period, you got to tribe up. You know what I'm saying? Get with like-minded people, right? Because the year of 2027, that's going to be the great separation. You got to separate from people who are going to get left behind. You got to leave your mama behind if she's on a low frequency. You got to leave your people behind if they on a low frequency. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to stay alive, to keep your children alive. Right? So they're telling you without telling you that this is the revelation, tribulation period, end time prophecy, right? So just pay attention to everything around you, especially if you live in bigger cities. So that's all I got for you guys today. Depending on what's going to be taking place in world governments or whatever, I'll be back with another transmission because, like I said, things are starting to speed up in real time. Things are starting to speed up really fast, right? And then you got the expiration of ceasefires and things of that nature going on with Iran and the Trump administration. All this stuff is not a coincidence. Everything that's happening in real time is happening for a reason, right? Donald Trump's talking about UFO disclosure. You got a lot of these high spiritual priests and imams talking about draconian reptilians. Then you got the black nobility showed up in the mainstream media with the royal family on television. They showing that in the news. All this stuff is happening for a reason, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. End of transmission.
I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land of Pan, Melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we were kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. You try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.